Today on the podcast, we're talking about the Songwriter's Planner podcast itself and what I've learned over the past year, and hopefully it can give you some ideas to be more creative with your music. We'll see you on the inside. What's going on, everybody? How's it going? Thank you for joining me today to the Songwriter's Planner podcast. My name is Mike, creator of the Songwriter's Planner, and I really appreciate you swinging by today. I got a great episode. I wanted to switch it up today and get to some really cool things that I've learned over the past year of doing this podcast. But before I jump into that, I just wanted to say, like I said, thank you every week for joining me. I appreciate it. If you are new here, I hope you get a chance to check out this episode and as well as many of my previous episodes. I like to post topics and talk about things that are important to musicians and artists like myself. And if you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe by hitting the subscribe button. Or if you listen to this on audio, the audio version of it, you can download from Spotify and iTunes. I post there every week, and you can follow me along there. So thank you very much, everybody. So like I was saying today, I wanted to switch it up a little bit because I really wanted to talk about this podcast itself. So I'm coming up close to about a year of doing this podcast, and I've been very lucky to be consistent with posting one episode every week. I believe I'm getting up to about a year now. And I started thinking about what I've learned over the past year and what I've gained by doing this podcast. Now, I'll give you a little bit of a background information. If you are familiar with the Songwriter's Planner, it is a written planner that I came out in the market last year and is a 6-month written planner. I'm a big proponent of goals, to-do lists, getting things done, scheduling, and I didn't think that musicians and artists had a product on the market or had a tool available to them that could help them achieve the things that they want to achieve now, especially in this music industry where everything is do-it-yourself. You are in charge of a million things now. And the planner itself was born of this need that I saw could give musicians the ability to stay organized, stay productive, but yet at the same time, not forget the creative side of what we really do. And being creative is at the core of what we do as artists. So this planner hit the market last year, and it's been a great ride. I've met a lot of people who have purchased the planner, and it has helped them and have gotten great feedback. It's been overall a very positive experience. So while I launched that planner, I thought back in May of June of 2018, why don't I start a podcast so I could supplement the things that I wanted to get out, not just the planner, but talk about issues and talk about things that artists and musicians face now in this new music industry. It's not just writing songs and performing and playing them. We're now in charge of so many other things: recording, videos, social media, promotion, advertising, email lists, newsletters. I mean, it is all right there for the taking for us. However, that it means more responsibility. And this podcast itself gave me a platform to talk about these things, to talk about the things that we need to be productive in and to schedule and to keep ourselves honest about, are we really making efforts to get our music heard? If you're really serious about getting your music out there and finding new fans, finding new people that are going to be interested in your music, that is where the planner, that is where this podcast, it all comes from. For me, it's an internal journey to kind of bring these issues to light, because as I'm talking about these things, I'm dealing with them too. I'm struggling with them. By nature, I'm a drummer. I've been a drummer for many, many years. But I've also had the pleasure to work with some amazing singer-songwriters, some amazing artists. I've written music myself. But what I learned by playing with other artists is I learned how other people function and how they produce themselves. And that to me has been very valuable, because I've got to observe, being that I'm a drummer, I get to play with many different artists, and I've gotten to play with many over the years. And I've taken all this knowledge that I've gotten by knowing and working with so many different artists and looking and saying, what did they do to keep them productive? What are they doing to stay creative? What are they doing to do all these things at once? And henceforth the planner, henceforth this podcast. So a few things that I, have observed over the past year while doing this podcast is that, I basically, there's moments where I'm like, God, I just want to talk more about the issues that I'm talking about. There's not enough time. And then sometimes I sit there and I go, my God, what am I gonna talk about today? I mean, I have no clue. It has been challenging, I'll tell you that. Like I said, I'm very fortunate that I've been able to put out an episode every week, touching on different issues. And the issues I, post on have to do with really, at the crux of it is a DIY, do-it-yourself kind of mentality, because that's kind of where I come from, as far as getting your music out there, getting yourself known as a musician and an artist, because everything is now available to us to do ourselves. That is kind of where I come from, and that is where I try to emulate all this stuff out into my podcasts and the basis behind the Songwriter's Planner. And if you are the same way, if you don't have a big label or you don't have a big manager company or anything like that, and you're literally doing things yourself, we do need to stay responsible, and we need to stay on top of our schedules, and we need to make sure we get things done that we have on our list. Because if you don't do them, guess what? No one else is going to do them. And the majority of the artists out there are like myself and a lot of the people that I know, is that we are do-it-yourselfers and we are responsible for our own progress. So this podcast serves as a platform for that, and it has served as a platform for that over the past year. And hopefully you have checked out a few other episodes and have taken in some of the issues I'd like to talk about. I really like focusing on things like video, because video is such a big proponent of promoting yourself as an artist. Social media promotion. These are really big topics that I like to dive into because I think they're so important and they don't get enough attention by us as musicians. We don't focus on them enough, and we don't realize, hey, oh my God, all these things are under our control now, and we have the ability to put out our music via these platforms with just a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of work on how to use these things effectively. So for me, doing this podcast, I will tell you a couple things that I've learned, and it's been great. It's been great to start. Let me just say that this has been awesome. There have been times where I've been just chomping at the bit to get the next episode in. And then there's times, like I was saying earlier, like I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I have a complete blank. And those times I'm like, wow, it's pretty scary. I don't know if I'm going to be able to put an episode. But something always comes up for me. Something always comes up where I'm like, yes, of course. I want to talk about that. And I want to hear your ideas about this subject matter. Basically, the skills I've learned while doing this podcast is, as you know, I produce a video version of this podcast and audio versions. And this video version that I have on my YouTube channel has really made me more comfortable in front of a camera. Now, I've always kind of felt that I was okay in front of a camera. I've done a lot of vlogging in the past and some of on-camera stuff. But over the year, doing this every week has really made me feel comfortable in talking in front of a camera and addressing you guys. I find it very valuable, especially being able to do that as an artist. You can use this kind of video as a medium to reach new audiences, whether you're just giving an update to your fans, you're looking them in the eye and you're saying, hey, this is what's going on, or if I was up here playing a song or something with an instrument. Either way, it's gotten me really good to addressing a camera and to working in front of a camera, which is a really valuable skill, especially if you're an artist and trying to find new fans, because fans want to connect with you. They want to see you. They want to connect and talk. It's like they want you to be talking to them, and that's exactly what this has done for me. Now, if you listen on the audio, that's great too. I will say, speaking here every week has also made me a better thought speaker. I've not always been that. I've always been kind of an off-the-cuff kind of person, but it has really made me formulate my thoughts better. I write notes every week, and I have my notebook, obviously, that I write my notes down and the things I want to talk about in the podcast. So it has really made me become a better on-camera person, speaking and organizing and planning. So thank you, podcast, for that. Outside with, of course, organizing, recording skills, recording the podcast, editing any kind of audio or any video. I don't do a whole lot of editing. I like to keep these podcasts just pretty much free flowing. So I'm not making a lot of edits, and it doesn't look like I'm cutting out a lot of things that I'm saying. Pretty much what you're seeing and what you're hearing from me is a constant train of thought, a constant flow of thoughts, and I don't really do a lot of editing. Some of my other projects, I'll do some editing, but this podcast itself, I like to keep open and flow and honest with you guys so that you are getting the real picture or the real thing, the real thoughts from me without any kind of post editing, okay? I've also learned how to read a lot of analytical data that shows me who's listening to my podcast, where are they, how many downloads does it get a week, how many downloads does it get a month, is it being streamed? This is all important information to learn, not just for a podcast, but you as an artist, if you have music uploaded, if you learn to read the analytical data and you dive deeper into just how many downloads, look at the page views, look at how many visitors, look at where are they visiting from. This has really helped me when I look at my podcasts, and you can do the same thing with your music. Find out exactly who's looking at it. Now, you're not going to get a list of names or anything, but you're going to get demographic information, and you could probably, Google Analytics has age range information. I mean, they get pretty specific. So find out where your music is being listened to and how often it's being downloaded. Where is it going to? Same statistics that I get from my podcast. It's the same kind of statistics you can get for your music. So I really, really would suggest doing that if you get a chance. Another thing I've learned with doing this podcast for over a year is that consistency is important. Sticking with it, staying with it, even though you feel like you don't have anything to give. Staying consistent with this kind of an effort is really important, and that is also applicable to your promotional activities and your music in general, being consistent. There is no perfect time to start. There is no silver bullet to getting anywhere. I truly think that staying on track, not quitting, staying consistent with whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're doing a podcast or whether you're vlogging or whether you're posting videos of your music or whether you're gigging consistently, that is the secret to gaining an audience. People want to know that you're around. People want to trust you. People want to see you constantly if they believe you. And then only at that point will they really start buying into what it is that you're giving them. In your case, it'll be your music. In my case, it is this podcast. So I really think that consistency helps. I see the number of downloads that I have go up and up, not greatly, but they do go up week after week. And I really appreciate that. And I do believe it's not because of my good looks and charm. Trust me, it's not that. I think it's just more sense because of my consistency and the fact that I can do this every week, and I have been able to. I've been lucky. So that's another thing I've learned doing this podcast. And one of the most important things that I've learned and that you can learn is especially if you're thinking about doing like a podcast for your music, is that people will tune in. Believe it or not, people will tune in. If you stay consistent and you have something, you give value back to people, and you're not there just saying, hey, world, look at me. Some people can get away with that, but the most of us can't. If you do it, people will find you. You will have an audience. Believe it or not. When I first started this podcast, I didn't think that I would really have an audience. I figured I'd try it for a month or two, see how I felt doing it, see if anybody was actually listening to it or watching it, and go from there. Well, here I am almost a year later, coming up on it, and I still find myself on the podcast, and I still find myself thinking about it. And I think it's a personal thing for me in that I do realize, wow, people do want to hear what you have to say. Not just me, but if you want to come out and you want to come out with your own podcast and provide people value about what you know, you will find an audience. It may not be a big audience at first. It may not be huge. You may not be getting 1 million downloads, but you will find an audience, and you will find people who are willing to put an ear to what you have to say or watch. I guarantee you will find someone or people will gravitate to you if you are honest and you are consistent and you provide good value. And that I want to transition into, if you are thinking about doing something like a podcast to help your music, and think about that. I think it's a great idea that you would want to try something like podcasting or vlogging to supplement your music, supplement the fact that you are an artist and a musician, you write music. I think it's the perfect complement for that, because not only you're giving people your music, but say you do a podcast and you get to tell people about your thoughts, some thoughts about what went into the songs that you're working on, or you can comment on what's going on in the music world today. You don't have to talk about yourself. You don't have to talk about your music. You can talk about things that you're interested in. You can talk about cooking, just a podcast about you, issues that you care about and that you want to share with your fans and that you think are going to be valuable to your fans. I think a podcast is a great way to do it. It's easy to do and very simple to implement. So something to think about out there, especially if you're doing a video and stuff like that for your music. Just think outside the box. Like I said, I started this podcast to supplement the Songwriter's Planner. To me, that kind of mimics what I do with music, in that I do have musical projects and I try to do vlogging and other stuff to supplement that. And I do the same thing with the planner. Is I try to supplement getting the planner out into the world with doing a podcast, coming at it from many angles, not just one angle of trying to sell something, but actually providing value. And you can do that too with your music, not just trying to get your music heard, but provide value to people who you might be able to find via podcast, via doing videos or stuff like that, or even blogging. You can even try that. So think about that. I really, again, I feel like I end every episode like this, but I really wish I could go dive into this more, talk about it more, but that's kind of just scratching the surface for me. So in essence, thank you for joining this podcast today. It was a little bit different than my other ones. And I really am thankful for you guys out there for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel or my Spotify or iTunes. You can download this podcast from there every week, as well as check out the Songwriter's Planner at songwritersplanner.com. That is it. I am out. Peace and love, people. We'll see you at the next one.